Hello and welcome to a very special pre-Boston Marathon show. Actually, we're very glad to have that. We're looking for the Boston Marathon. We should have a great logo on there too. We try. And in the meantime, I'm Mike Wigdor.
I'm
one
Frank
of the co-hosts,
Walsh.
Frank Walsh, and we have a special guest with us who is a marathon runner. And his name is Bill Coulter. So Bill, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Stoughton's own Bill Coulter.
Bill Coulter, that's right. And he's a surprise guest, actually, but we're glad to have him. He's very active in the Boston Marathon and running the Boston Marathon. I think, what'd you say, this is your 33rd consecutive?
Be my 33rd consecutive and my 36th overall.
36 overall, wow. So, Bill, who are you running for? And could you give us some background as to how you got involved in this and why you're so deeply involved in it?
I'm just running for myself, even though I'm a Massachusetts State Trooper, and we have our own team, and we've had teams for, I think, for 30 years. And how I got involved in it was in 1978. I was 4 years a trooper at that time. Two other troopers come up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to run the Boston Marathon?" And I never even thought about it. One of those. And I said, "Sure." And that's how it all came about. I have no idea where the numbers came from them. I don't know how they had three numbers. We paid for them, we registered. And I ran the race that year, and I've sort of been in that sport, the endurance type end of the sports forever. And then a few years after, I ran, I think 2 years later, and then 2 years later. And then what happened is I got into Ironman triathlons. And the first bite of that was in Hawaii. And once you go to Hawaii once for anything, even the beating of 11 hours on the lava fields, you'd love the sport, and I've been in the sport since. And as far as marathoning, I've done 32 in a row in Boston, and I've also done every Disney marathon, which is 23. So it's sort of become probably an obsessive game. I'm not fast. I've never been fast. I just work hard. I feel accomplished when I finish it, but there's no other rewards.
And you're such a busy guy because you're involved in with so many different barracks and troops. And so how do you find time to train even?
Well, you sneak it in here or there. Coincidentally, in the Mass State Police, we have a contract that we have 1 hour a day for fitness, which has turned out to be an excellent program. But I don't usually work out in that 1 hour because has to do with if there's time. So if I had to work on a highway and it was a snow day, you'd never get time because you'd be out doing traffic in the snow all day. But I usually try to work out in the morning. I'm a person that DW Fields Park is in Brockton. It's right next door. It's a gem. It's the most fabulous place to walk or run. Everyone's in there. Safety, it's fine. But I try to, by the way, what I didn't mention was that I don't run at all other than race. 7 or 8 years ago, I had some health issues and I hadn't ridden my bike in a year. And after I rode my bike for the first time, it was the first time, and I really got hit by a car, and it crushed my hip and my shoulder, and it put me out of the game for another 5 months. And as a result, I had the hip repaired. A year later, it failed, and then I had the hip replaced. Part of having a hip replaced was that my particular surgeon, who was very high in the rankings, said that he didn't want me to run ever again, and I agreed to that, understanding the game. But then it didn't take long, and I had to keep doing the races because I'd been doing the races. So I went to him and said, "Hey, would it hurt if I ran a marathon every now and then?" And he goes, "Well, what about training?" I said, "Well, I wouldn't do training. I'd only walk." And he goes, "Oh, you can't do that." And I'm just one of those people. When you can't do that, you're doing it.
That's a brave. I'll tell you, you're Rocky. You're right with this theme.
So then
to walk like that.
I try to walk in Fields Park 3 times a week. I try to do 6 miles one day, 8 miles another day, and 10 miles another day. So it comes out to 24 miles a week. I'm very careful of my weight. Every morning, I step on that scale and just stare at that thing, and I don't want it to go over 170. And I'm very careful on my shoes because I don't want the impact on the hip. And it's fanatical, but it works. And since then, actually now, I talk to all sorts of people that think their athletic days are over, and I say, well, they might be a lot slower, but they're not over. And since that time, I've continued my streaks, and it works well. And just like any other marathon runner, though, I try to beef it up. 4 or 5 weeks ago, instead of 24 miles a week, I'm doing 44 miles. You're walking along. When a runner goes out and does their 20-mile run on Heartbreak Hill, I'm down the Cape Cod bike path walking my 22 miles on that. So it's very similar, just a lot slower.
Very dedicated, I'll tell you. That's
Now,
admirable.
you're part of a great group who are going to be supporting you and a part of your group. How many people are in that group?
I have a group, because of my job in the state police, myself and Boston Police, we get along really well, and we sort of entertain or take care of every policeman in the country who comes in to run the Boston Marathon. So in my group, we have about 600
Wow.
that are in our group, and what we do is, if they identify themselves through us that they're a policeman from anywhere in the United States, we don't have numbers from them, they have to have their own numbers. Or we do have a special program that if you are a military, United States military, and you've been deployed to Iraq and or Afghanistan in the last 18 months, as an appreciation, we can get them a number, and then we take care of everything for them. And when this program first started 3 or 4 years ago, we actually had people flying from Iraq run the race on leave and then fly back.
Wow.
And growing up in Vietnam, that sure didn't happen then,
Exactly.
Yes.
And
we're all Vietnam era
That's
vets.
right, yeah.
Not vets, but Vietnam era kids.
Yeah.
So it's a great program. And then I also have a third group in there. I'm a board of directors on a charity called Cops for Kids for Cancer, which is a fabulous charity. It doesn't go for the cure, it actually goes for the families. And if you are a person with a child seriously sick with cancer in that challenge and you're starting to have money challenges, we come in and give you $5,000. We're not we have no salaries. We're a true
Nonprofit?
absolutely. And what happens is usually the social workers in the hospitals are the one that tell us who needs the help the most. So I have the 3 groups all together, and then
Is there a fundraiser for that group too?
we have them all. Every runner.
That's part of it?
Yes, correct. Every state police runner that runs, tries to bring in $1,000 for that, and every police runner. And then, but the people who run just under that charity number, the marathon sells us numbers, and it's limited, only 15, and then they pay $10,000 to run the race. So that's how much they pay to run the race.
Wow.
And they're happy to do it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I know we're talking generally right now about the marathon, but it would be hard not to address the events that happened 3 years ago.
Right.
And I think that, you have some direct connection to that maybe we can talk about in a little bit. But Mike, you have someone else who we want to introduce onto the show as well, don't we? Before
Yeah, we
get
do.
into
Do you
that?
think it's a good time to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get him on.
Yeah.
So we
Why don't you tell who it is?
Going to tell. I'm contacting Ben Greene, who's he said he knows you, by the way. Do you know Ben Greene?
I know Ben Greene. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he's very enthusiastic. It's his second marathon, and he's running for the Spaulding Rehab Hospital. So I'm going to get him on the phone now. And he's Stoughton's own Ben Greene. So let's go with Ben Greene.
One ringy dingy.
Hello?
Ben, are you there?
Yes, this is
Okay, this is Mike and Frank, and also Bill Coulter. We're all
you
here in
doing?
the show, and you're live on, not live, but you're being taped here, and we're happy to have you on. So we'd like to know a little bit about why you're running and who you're running for.
Great. Thank you for having me on, first of all. I am running for Spaulding Rehab. I personally am running because one of my goals was, in some point in my life, to run a marathon, and I had a lot of issues where it wasn't necessarily going to be possible, and I worked through them, especially health issues in my knees and some weight issues, and it was something I wanted to do personally. And then also, I wanted to run for Spaulding specifically because after the marathon bombings, I really wanted to be a part of sort of helping out in some way, and a lot of the victims of the marathon bombing ended up being patients at Spaulding, and I thought that would be a great opportunity for me to give back.
Did you actually meet any of those patients that were involved in that bombing situation when you were there?
Yeah, I never actually had a chance to meet them myself. I know many physical therapists and other staff who have worked with those patients. But I never had an opportunity to meet any of them myself, though.
Okay.
So as far as your running, how long have you been running? Or is this something that you've gotten into fairly recently? Or you just woke up one morning and something inspired you and said, hey, I have to run? And if that was the case, how did you prepare for that and train for that?
Well, it was something that sort of came along. I've always liked sports. I've always been an athlete. I was never very good at them growing up. I sort of got better as I got older, and wanted to run and thought the marathon would be something on my bucket list. And woke up pretty much one day and decided I was going to start running. I went out for a run by my house one morning. I actually ended up making it to, I think, about 4.5 miles my first run out, and just went from there and started running longer distances. Ran with a lot of people in the Stoughton area. There's a couple people at the Y who I ran with for a while, and sort of just went from there and kept running, and worked my way up to a half marathon. And then last year, Spalding gave me a spot on the team about 5 weeks before the marathon, and I joined, and I basically at that point trained for a 21-mile run to do my last training run, and then ran the marathon.
Now, is this something that you think you're going to continue?
I definitely will continue running. I don't know how many more Boston marathons I'll do. I know I'm going to do a few more marathons other places. I really would like to sort of experience maybe Chicago or Las Vegas, or maybe doing the Disney marathon, different marathons. But I know that after I finish this year's, I'll probably want to do Boston again as well.
What is your training regimen like? How do you make time to do it, and what do you do for training?
I actually am probably not the best person to answer about training. I definitely don't train as hard as I should, and I wish I trained harder. And hopefully for the next one I will train harder. A lot of what I do for training is I just do cardio when I can. I never will step on a treadmill or elliptical, but I try to run whenever I can with friends or with anybody else who's running. I do a lot of team runs, sort of with Spalding or with people who are on the team, and separately. I try to do a long run every weekend, and maybe 1, 2, sometimes 3 short runs during the week if I have time.
Cool. Well, say hi to Bill Coulter, our guest in studio here, and you had mentioned the Disney run. Now, Bill, you have some experience with that. You mentioned that you run that quite a bit, so maybe you can give our guest here a little elbow in the ribs to do that.
Ben, when Disney started their marathon in 1994, I'm a Disney fanatic, so I knew I had to get in on it, not realizing that I was going to be in on it forever, because now when you have a streak going, you keep trying to continue that streak. And I've run that all 23 times, and I don't know what's going to happen at 25, but we're continuing on it. But going back to one comment that you made about your training being sporadic or whatever, and you can quote me on this, training is way overrated. And really? I'm actually, we joke about some people call team no training, but excessive training, because these people who are giving you training programs, this is their life, and it's not your life. You have a different life, and most people who overtrain get injured. So then they end up starting the Boston Marathon not in the best of moods, because they question, are they going to finish, because their knee is hurt, their Achilles is hurt, they got plantar fasciitis. The best way to go is to go undertrained and make the Boston Marathon the long run.
Yeah, because it was interesting, because when I spoke to Ben the other day, he says to me, have you ever run a marathon? And the best I've ever done is like walk a 5K, fast walk 5K. So, I mean, do you think almost anyone, if they get to reasonable shape, can actually do that, or walk it, or run, combination?
Absolutely.
I mean, do they make a big deal too much about Heartbreak Hill and all that?
Absolutely.
What is it like Heartbreak Hill?
Heartbreak Hill.
I was always curious about that.
The reason Heartbreak Hill, and I actually ran Johnny Kelly's last 3 marathons. He told me the whole story about it when he got passed, and why he called it Heartbreak Hill. But Heartbreak Hill, the Boston Marathon is downhill for the first 5 miles. Mm-hmm. And because you're running so close to the person next to you, you never understand you're really running downhill, but all of a sudden at the end of 5 miles, you're running 4 minutes faster than you're training.
Oh, okay.
And then another one of the big
secrets. You don't have a choice, basically, to keep up with the people, or else get trampled. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it always amazes me how many people think that on marathon day, wow, I'm 4 minutes ahead of schedule in 5 miles. I'm going to do this and I'm going to have a super performance. It's never going to happen. Yeah. So it's a human body. It's 26 miles. What can go wrong?
Right.
But
I don't think my car can get 26 miles.
I know, really.
So Boston is downhill. It has fabulous fan support, even out there. And it's technically, it's impeccable. It's got water lined up. I mean, figure that they're putting 30,000 cups of water in that first 1 mile water stop ahead of time, because the entire race is coming by them pretty quick at that point.
Right.
So then when you get out on the course, then you sort of fade along until you get to Wellesley. And Wellesley College is fabulous. Mm-hmm. And it's eerie, it's so loud. And then after that, you go through Wellesley and you go downhill again, and then you come to 128. Which is your first uphill. It's not part of the Heartbreak Hills, but as I always say, that's the start of your bad day. Oh, okay. And then you go by, and then you cross that, then you go by the Newton Wellesley Hospital and the fire station, and then when you make that turn, that's where you've got about 4 miles of, as they call, Heartbreak Hill. The last two, the first two are just minor rises in the road, but the last two are significant hills.
Oh, okay.
But the reason why they're bad is because you've had that first 5 miles that were too fast, and now here's the spot where, now it's
You need
payback.
the energy to get up it.
Payback time. And
Yeah.
then, even though it's basically downhill after Boston College, which is another fabulous place at 20 and a half, it's an extremely hard race. Ben, not too many people enjoy that race after that. If you run it fast or you run it slow, that's still just a hard race.
Yeah.
So
How-
Ben, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to ask Ben the same question. How he liked the.
Oh, good. I was going to say, Ben, one of the disadvantages of our show is time.
Right.
So why don't you take a second and tell us again whom you're running for and how to support you and how people could contribute to your cause.
So I'm running again for Spaulding Rehab Hospital. It's really important to me personally just to be able to give back to an amazing organization that's helped so many people. You can support Spaulding either by looking on their website and they have links to their donation site, or you can support Spaulding through my donation site, which is actually on crowdrise.com.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually, the link is, if you go to crowdrise.com, you search my name, Ben Greene, Greene, you'll find my page, and you can actually donate right through there, and that all goes to Spaulding Rehab Hospital as well. And I just to reiterate something that Billy just said, I really do believe anyone can run a marathon. If you saw me 3 years ago and you looked at me, you'd never believe I was ever going to run one. And it's all about choices and all about things. You have to be motivated to do it, but if you have the motivation, then anyone can physically go out and do it. It's just being motivated enough to do it.
Cool.
Okay. So the other thing I need to mention to you, because I looked at your Facebook page, maybe your crowdfunding page, I'm sorry, and I saw Teddy Bruschi, you and Teddy Bruschi, one of my heroes. How did that end up, and how were you so lucky to get in touch with him?
So actually, we were doing our last long run, which is the 21-mile run, which is about 3 weeks before the marathon, and we were on the bus heading out to start, and when we parked the bus and started our run, Teddy Bruschi actually was there, and he was there to support us, was there to sort of cheer us on for a minute, so I got to take a photo with him. I got to tell him how much I respected him. Probably one of my favorite football players of all time, and it was a great opportunity. He was very supportive, and just great to see him there.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Now, Bob has already given you some cogent advice and his experiences. Is there any question that you would have for Bob here, or
No, Bill.
anything that you? I'm sorry, Bill. I'm sorry. Yeah. Anything that you would want to ask Bill? For tips or advice or anything before we have to sign off.
Well, luckily, I've talked to Billy a bunch of different times and had the opportunity to ask him a lot of questions. I know he's run more races than I'll ever run, and run faster than I'll ever run too. And I would just, the only thing I'd ask him if I was a new runner is I'd basically ask him what the feeling's like, because it's something that you'll never experience any other time. And I luckily experienced it last year, but anyone else, the best thing he could tell you is what it feels like when you've crossed that finish line, or what it feels like when you're running that race.
Yeah. Well, he said he's going to be looking out for you. He is a state trooper here, so if you run and exceed the speed limit, he's going to give you a ticket.
Yeah, right. That's a joke.
You there with us, Ben?
Are you there? Ben?
Hello? Sorry, I lost you.
Yeah, did you hear that?
I said, did you hear that?
No, I missed that.
Okay, I was saying that you have to remember that Mr. Coulter here is a state trooper, and if you run too fast and exceed the speed limit, he's going to ticket you.
Yeah, right.
There'll be no surcharge on your insurance for that, though.
That's right. No surcharges. Yeah. Well, good luck on your race, Ben, and thank you very much for calling in. And we'll definitely pass it on that people should get in line and support you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you for having me on the show.
Okay, and one other thing is, since this
Billy,
is
best of luck to you as well.
Since this is your first race, maybe you can come on
second race.
sometime, afterwards, and let us know what that experience was like.
Great, I would love to do that.
All right. Well, you take care.
Yeah,
Thanks
take
for
care,
coming
Ben.
on.
Good. Thank you.
Cool. So we're very happy too to also have Bill Coulter on today, so we don't have to talk about the Red Sox.
Yeah.
And we just found out before the show that you're not a Red Sox fan as much. Why don't you tell us about that a little bit?
Well, my Red Sox are my second team.
Okay, your second team.
Even though they've been wonderful to me.
Yeah.
I had an issue 10 or 12 years ago when I was very sick, and Larry Lucchino himself invited me into his personal box.
Wow.
And I watched the Red Sox game with him, and it was the thrill of getting better. You know, you were treated like you were sick, and people like that, they don't realize, you know, they have a lot of seats, but they took the time to give me one.
Nice.
It meant a lot to me, and
Sure.
and Larry himself was sick once, and so he understood it, and I love him for it, and I'm very grateful. But I've always had a real connection with the Royals. Is that I went through for 3 years. I caught a lot of the Red Sox pitches in the winter. Mm-hmm. I have a gym in Framingham. When I say I have a gym, the state police has a fitness facility.
Yep.
However, when I was sick, on Memorial Day, they dedicated the fitness facility to me because they thought I was going to be dead.
Wow.
And
You fooled them.
I fooled them.
You fooled them.
And the funny part came is that on that morning, we had a 5K road race that I was one of the helper bees. I just cleaned up trash. I didn't run it. You know, and they came over to me, the colonel of the state police and said, look, we were going to dedicate the gym to you today. I hate to tell you this, but we thought you were going to be dead. And so he said,
Gee, can you help us out with that? You know?
and so, in a true state fashion, if you're a state employee, you understand. He goes, look, we paid $600 for this brass plaque to put on the gym. He goes, do you mind if we put it on it today? And so ever since then, I always have the smile on my face that I have a memorial gym that I'm alive for. And so the Red Sox, I used to catch them up there, and one of my favorites was Mike Boddicker. He got traded to the Royals. He was the most disciplined of any spring training pitcher.
He was very militaristic too, wasn't he? I mean, maybe that's why. You know, he had that lean, mean. You know.
You know what I've noticed is in a lot of things, he was a family man. His family came first. He came up and worked in his spring training. If he was going to throw it at 10 o'clock, he was there at 10 o'clock.
Didn't they get him on a trade from the Orioles?
Yes, from Brady Anderson.
Orioles? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
that
he
was
part of
Brady
that
Anderson
Baltimore
trade?
powerhouse team.
Yeah.
The steroid, the muscular, the guy that hit 54 home runs
all of a sudden.
and never did anything afterwards. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So he goes to Kansas City, and then I went out there. Actually, I went out there when he did his signing bonus, and it was another fun part of my life. And so since then, I've always stayed a Royals fan, and I'm pretty analytical. I'm a smart math guy, and I always knew because they're a low-budget team and they have so much talent that they would develop it. And sure enough, the past few years, it's paid off literally. You know, they did it. But so I like the Royals.
You did, and you also cleaned up on a bet.
I did. I'm not a betting person, but
okay, you're not a betting person, but at one time.
But for 4 years in a row, I was in Las Vegas and bet $100 on the Royals each time, and sure enough, it paid off, and it paid off $1,200, and there was nothing wrong with that.
No, in fact, I think this year they're the favorite to get back to the World Series this year. They're one of the top favorites.
It's almost impossible though to repeat 3 times.
Yeah. Well, I suppose so, but I mean, would it be their third year? Really?
It would. Yeah, they were in the first year.
Oh, that's right. They lost.
And they lost to San Francisco.
To San Francisco, and then they beat the Mets last year. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Orioles, they don't even look like a team of men. They look like a team of cyborgs the way they've been playing against us. I hate to come back into the Red Sox, but
yeah, no.
Do you follow any other sports? You know, being the marathon guy. I mean, you like baseball. Are you a football fan?
When Ben said, I think one of the best athletes I've ever seen. I mean, I have my certain favorite athletes in the world. Muhammad Ali would be number one.
Okay.
And there's just so many of them that I look at, and my eyes light up like a 6-year-old. But certainly, when he was mentioning Teddy Bruschi to me is certainly like Teddy Bruschi could have run for president against John Kennedy and won. I mean, he's that good to everybody. I mean,
he was so popular.
There's not a person that ever says anything bad about that man. You know,
no. He played with such passion too, and it's like you could see that the love on it too as well. You know, he just enjoyed it so much. He was like a impassioned. Even when he talked afterwards, like you can feel the fire coming out of him.
He made everybody around him better. You know, he wouldn't take any baloney, and I guess he was kind of the sergeant in the clubhouse or the locker room, and nobody got out of line.
Plus the cheerleader,
and
the main cheerleader.
Nobody got out of line, and he held that locker room together.
And he also has a marathon team that he captains out. He has, like us, like Cops and Kids of Cancer, it's a small team, but he's very enthusiastic. People that run from him say he's a wonderful man, and he shows up for the fundraisers. And
I mean, that's what Ben was saying, was that when he met him, he was very willing to willing to give autographs, and really friendly, down to earth, And I've heard that about Bobby Orr, who is like the god of gods, maybe in Boston, really, And when you meet him, he's like
Yeah,
humble.
It's just funny.
nice.
I've been around forever, but I met Bobby Orr.
I was going to ask you because you've been around.
Strangely enough, I was involved in a charity with Bobby Orr back in the late 70s. When I showed up to be at the charity, when he showed up, I didn't know he was part of it. And he said to me, "Do you drink?" And I said, "No." He goes, "Great, let's go." and we went to Falmouth, down to that place called the Brothers Four.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And there was a Canadian hockey player who had phased out, was a bartender there, and he was Bobby's friend.
Yeah.
And I sat there all night while those two talked and chatted, and I sat there, and he another, what a gentleman he was.
Yeah, he's supposed to be another class act.
He's unbelievable. I mean, I'm not a Bostonian. I came to Boston like in '72, the heyday, '73, the heyday of the Bobby Orr mania. I've never seen anything like it, and I grew up like where Mickey Mantle was idol. But I had a friend. I have to tell this story because I just can't believe it. I had a friend that would time his dinners so that he could be in front of the TV set watching the Bruins every single night.
Well, it's like damn Yankees, the
it
play.
was like,
that-
and not only that, he wouldn't let you in his room to watch. And we, back then, like I think he maybe had the TV set because I was, we were young and everything, and maybe he had wanted TV, but he wouldn't let us in. He'd lock the door and not let us in.
Well, that whole team back in the late 60s, I was a kid out of high school then, and on a Friday night, you were more apt to see all of us go to someone's house and watch the Bruins game with someone's mother and father, rather than go out. That's how dedicated everyone was to that team.
I can't. The passion for that just blows me away still after all these years.
Yeah. But as you can see,
we're running down.
Time is running down. So why don't you, say once again, the cure for the cause for the cure for cancer there, and now that is something that
It's the
people
cops? What
can
is it?
contribute other than during marathon. They can do that anytime during the year.
Yes, we're a 365-day charity, and we give money to the families.
Yep.
And we have a website, Cops for Kids with Cancer, and similar to the Spalding or Chetty Brewski's team, anyone can help that at any time, and it's fabulous. We work out of. We're actually going to be nationwide at some point, but right now we work basically out of Dana-Farber or Children's Hospitals or Tufts or Mass General. And if a family really has problems, we step right in and help them out. We do more than just the money, but basically it's a money thing because that's what people need.
And 100% of that money goes to them.
About 95%. We have no charities, but sometimes you have to pay credit card bills, sort of things.
So that's great. So it's Cops for Kids for Cancer.
With cancer, yep.
With cancer, Cops for Kids with Cancer. So check out that charity. And in the meantime, we just want to thank M&G Pizzas once again for being a fabulous sponsor for us, as usual, for lunch. And
we want to thank our esteemed director, Roxanne Morse.
Yep, and all
our
that's
phone
left is-
our phone guest.
Our phone guest, and Ben Greene, and our studio guest, Bill Coulter. So for Mike Wigdor,
And Frank Walsh,
we will see you down the road.